Hello, my name is Maggie Lacambra. I'm a certified athletic trainer and I work on Gatorade's sports marketing team. I speak on behalf of everyone at Gatorade when I say we're excited to be here with you today. The past few months have presented challenges like never before, and we applaud each of you for remaining nimble and adjusting your roles and studies as you have. Our goal is that this discussion will help you answer your questions around building your career during these uncertain times and beyond. I am pleased to be joined by three extraordinary guests, Fred Tedeschi, Tiffany Morton, and Dale Grooms. Our panelists are here to give you advice and answer your questions, so please do not hesitate to speak up and submit your questions for the group through the chat function. To begin, let's start with some introductions of our panelists, then we can get right into the Q&A portion of our discussion. Dale, would you start us off by introducing yourself, please?
Be happy to. So my name is Dale Grooms. I work at New Trier High School, which is a small school outside of Chicago. My school size is about 4,000 students, and I average about 3,000 athletic participations a year. I've been very fortunate to be involved with both state, district, and national level committees. I worked most notably with the NATA Secondary School Committee, as well as just finishing up a term as Vice President for District 4.
Thank you, Dale. We're excited to have you here and look forward to your thoughts and feedback. Tiffany, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tiffany. I'm an assistant athletic trainer with the Kansas City Chiefs. I've been with them for about 5 years now, including 1 year as an intern. And that's one of my responsibilities currently is handling our internship program. So I know that's a big point of interest for everybody.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions for you as well. And finally, Fred, would you like to please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Maggie. And thanks to Gatorade for putting this program together. Very valuable for the students. So I'm Fred Tedeschi, and I'm in my 6 years the Director of Athletic Training Services at Oregon State. I am been an athletic trainer for almost 40 years now. I've had a variety of experiences, both at the college and the professional level. And, done a little bit of everything, done it a lot of different places. So excited to be here and appreciate you guys having me, Maggie.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here today. I know these are unusual times and everybody's scrambling to get something done. And as we were saying earlier, it's a hurry up and wait. But at least it's in the nature of being an athletic trainer is to hurry up and wait and be ready. So I'm sure you'll all have some great advice. And again, for those of you listening in, please send your questions in so we can have these fine panelists answer these questions for you. I'm going to kick it off and just wondering if you guys can each share your thoughts and advice on just one piece of advice on what you would give to a student coming out of school right now looking for their first job. I know it's been a little while since you each had your first job, but what kind of advice would you give somebody looking for a job now in this current market? Tiffany, would you like to start?
Sure. It actually wasn't too long ago that I was looking for my first job. I graduated in 2013 from FIU. And I remember then I thought I had checked all the boxes off early, right? And I was like, I did the BOC early, got the references, I wanted to do the football, did the conferences, and actually didn't get a job until later in the summer. So I remember that fear of not knowing what's next. And I can only imagine how students today feel with not only that fear, but with COVID kind of unsettling everything in the athletic training field. And so my biggest piece of advice that I would have given myself back then, but especially today, is patience. Absolutely, just be patient and use this time to build yourself, whether that's continuing to review information that you maybe were kind of not so great on your BOC. Obviously you passed it, but there's always ways to improve, or maybe you take an opportunity to learn something new, gain a certification that you've been working on or been wanting previously. You've got some downtime, we all do, but especially while you're after school and you're still in that school learning mindset. So go ahead and take the opportunity to continue your learning and build your resume that way. So once you apply for your next position, you've got a resume that's continually expanding.
Not often that you're in the workplace and have time to take care of things for yourself. So I love that advice of doing something for you to continue to be ready. Fred, what advice would you give?
So as I look back about 1,000,000 years ago when I was looking for my first job, one of the key things was to be able to leverage the relationships you had formed through school and with your preceptors, and maybe you got involved with a student group within the district or the state organization to make sure that you're connecting with those people, because for me that was really key in kind of landing that first experience to kind of find some ground to sort of launch my career. So I would encourage in this time of uncertainty, great uncertainty, to make sure that you're connecting with the people that that are connected with other people, so that as opportunities present themselves, you're nimble, you're flexible, and you're kind of ready to put your best foot forward.
Thank you, Fred. Dale, will give you an opportunity to answer the same question.
Thank you. In this area of COVID-19, you may be wanting to look at just more than just the traditional settings, looking at some of those new fields, new areas that we can explore. Our skill set goes into many areas. So again, just don't keep the traditional setting, look outside the traditional setting for a lot of new opportunities and exciting jobs. And this is one of the things that COVID-19 has really done, is open up more doors for us. And I can't agree with more with Fred, get involved with your state committees, because there's a lot of great connections that you can make. And sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know to get those jobs.
That's fantastic. All the exposure that you can get by trying different settings and meeting different people and building your network. We've actually got a question in from Kyler. Kyler would like to know, what do you wish someone would have told you about your first job or your first year as a certified athletic trainer? Dale?
So you don't know it all. And that's okay. I mean, if you think about it, there's specialists as physicians. You have your orthopedics, you have dermatologists, you have your proctologists. I mean, you have this whole wide range of experts that are just physicians, and even physicians don't know it all. And it's okay not to know it all, but you are the resource to help those patients get better.
I love that. I love that. And admitting that you don't know it all, that's okay, right? You've got a lot of years ahead to learn it all, if ever. Fred?
So I had a professor in college that, and I still remember this to this day, said, it's not so much that you got to keep everything in your head and have all this knowledge, but maybe know where to find it when you need it. And that's always stuck with me, that, it's just important to know where answers might be, and it's okay to say, boy, I don't know that right now, but give me a minute, I'm going to look this up, or I'm going to talk to someone. And it's kind of lands in forgiveness a little bit, that, just because you kind of come into that first job, there's going to be all these big, hairy, ugly things that may be the landmines in the road. But the truth of the matter is, it's completely okay. And to rely on those senior relationships with your coworkers that you can talk to and, bounce ideas off of. Because I think I wish I'd known that then, because I obviously know it now, that it was just okay to not be okay at that moment.
That's great. And I'm sure that's something that you're teaching your students now within your setting. Tiffany, what would you say?
I think both of them had great points, and that you're not going to know everything, and that it's okay. Just kind of feeding off of that, one of the things that I had to learn for myself as well is you're going to make mistakes. That's inevitable. If you accept that the mistakes will happen, you'll feel less stress on yourself. You'll feel less just the thought that you're overwhelmingly going to fail in some way. Don't think of it as a failure. You're going to make mistakes. Every profession makes mistakes, and that's perfectly fine. What's not fine is not learning from the mistake. Don't make the same one twice. So whether that's you have to make notes, or you have to make an adjustment, or you have to have a tough conversation somewhere, do whatever it is you got to do, but don't make that same mistake twice, because that one's on you.
I remember that advice from years ago when I was a student, and I love that. So as you've gotten into the workplace, and each of you have different number of years in experience here, what tips would you have for a newly certified athletic trainer as they're getting into the workforce and looking for mentors? What should they look for in a mentor as they start their career? Fred, we'll let you start this one.
Yeah, so I've kind of got the view of mentorship that it's always a two-way street. You've got to have a willing mentor, and you've got to be willing to engage in that relationship as a mentee, is that a word?
I think so.
So I think to kind of realize that on the front end, and then as you start to look in your workplace and in your community to find those people that are willing to kind of take you under their wing. You know, they're open, they're honest, they're able to kind of support you, you know, kind of where you're at and realize where you want to get to. So I think as you kind of look at your workplace, there's always those people that either you respect for their years of experience or what they're doing, but try and connect with them, but also realize that they may not want to engage in that sort of relationship at that time, and that's got to be okay. But usually there is that person that will be kind of the wind underneath your sails that you can bounce ideas off of, like you can ask for, I'm contemplating making this job move, should I do this at this time? And again, you've got to be able to realize that it's you being willing to be mentored, and for the mentor being willing to mentor you.
I love that it's a two-way street, and you got to give as much as you're going to take. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, great. Dale, what would you say?
I think Fred hit it on the head, and you reiterate, it's a two-way street, but you've got to be willing to ask for that mentor. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of ATs out there that are so willing to help you and to provide you information that you need. There's a lot of things you don't need to reinvent the wheel. That's why you look for the mentor, so that you can, whatever setting that you have, you can rely on that person for maybe some other paperwork that you need, or some different protocols that you're going to need to do. So seek for those people out in that field in your area. I think it's going to be really imperative.
Great, thank you. Tiffany, what would you say?
Again, I agree with the guys. To add, I think my best mentor relationships honestly come from organic relationships that just naturally occurred. These were people that I trusted to have tough conversations with. And after that, you develop a trust to be able to come back to those relationships. And then on the flip side, not every single person that you interact with has to be that perfect mentor-mentee situation. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just take the opportunity for the opportunity, and it comes and it goes, and that's it. But you learn something from it, and it's invaluable to you. Then you move on. That person may not be there 24/7 for you, or become this great mentor-mentee relationship, and that's perfectly fine. You will find that person for you, but in the meantime, absolutely, any opportunity that presents itself, ask the questions, and if it organically happens and you've created this relationship, perfect. If not, move on, and you will find lots of points of information as well.
I love that, taking a little bit of responsibility yourself as you're looking for that individual and building your own toolbox of what's going to work for you. So with these, with the challenges that we're currently in of COVID-19 and not necessarily being able to be in front of people that you may want to be in front of, and maybe the landscape is a little bit different now than when each of you got into the athletic training field. But what's your recommendation for successful networking during these difficult times? How have you managed to continue to stay in touch with those people that you find to be helpful and potentially your mentors? Tiffany, we'll let you start this one off.
You know what I think is great and unique in this crazy times is that social media does have a place right now. Mm-hmm. I've had multiple calls, whether it's Zoom or through Facebook or Instagram, lots of connections that I previously wouldn't have had if the opportunity wasn't available. So I think sometimes this 2020 networking of social media is nice. You're able to make connections that maybe you weren't able to make before. And right now it's pretty much the only way that you're able to do that. But I've had some really great conversations learning from people who've been in the profession longer, different areas of the profession, and people who are just joining in their journey. And it's amazing how just a couple years difference creates that informational change. But I think being open to that and finding your small little niche or small little group that you're interested in athletic training, and searching your social media networks is an amazing way in this crazy time to network. They usually have some sort of Zoom opportunity or a one-on-one conversation to have, and it creates a mentor-mentee relationship there as well. It's unique, but it definitely is another way to get that networking done right now.
Fantastic. I love that. Dale?
I'm going to kind of jump back what I kind of said before, and I agree with Tiffany. However, for myself, I am such bad at social media. I am horrible at it. I have a Facebook account. My wife updates it. Just being honest, I'm very bad at it. But again, I'm going to go back to this great opportunity now to get involved with your state or district association, and it's a way to, again, expand those horizons, expand those opportunities, and to learn, which then creates those networks all throughout the state or your district. I think it's one of your better ways to do that as we sit here in COVID-19.
Fantastic. Fred, you want to finish that one off?
Yeah, so I think one of the strategies that I've tried to do is, in these uncertain times, is be really intentional. Every day I try and connect with someone that I've had a relationship with. Maybe it's been a few years, but try to solidify and use this time to reconnect. And sometimes it's through a letter, oftentimes it's a text, a call, a social media platform. But I try to be very intentional about every day at least connecting with one person that I've in my past, and could be random. I mean, again, just something to kind of maintain those relationships. And what I would kind of encourage the young people, again, social media is good, bad, or indifferent depending on your point of view. But it's a great place to be vulnerable and to reach out to maybe your desired job is in a certain area in a certain field. I'm sure that some people and athletic trainers in that situation are on social media. Reach out to them, friend them, follow them, whatever. I don't even know what the right jargon is, but again, it's putting yourself out there and realizing, hey, this is where I want to get to. This isn't going to be this step isn't going to accomplish the whole thing, but it's a building block to make your case for when that job does become available and you're prepared for it. There it is. You've already kind of got a tentacle in there.
Love it all. Great advice from each of you. Thank you. We've got a question that came in from Tyler, and I think we've got a few of these regarding internships. So how you get an internship. So he wants to know, how does one go about applying for an NFL internship? Who should we usually contact, and what is the best way to find that contact information? Tiffany, you're probably best suited for this one.
Take it away. Let me make sure everybody knows the PFATS website for the Professional Football Athletic Trainer Society. That website's got a plethora of information on there, including addresses for each of the 32 teams and scholarship opportunities. There are 32 minority scholarships and 32 female scholarships that are available in the league for PFAT. So start there first, and that's going to probably answer a majority of your questions. There's hints and tips. There's what a summer internship might look like. And again, that contact information is there as far as addresses, so you can send in your hard copy. I'll tell you what, when I first was applying, those weren't all there, so you're welcome. The hard copy is probably the best way to go, because if you don't have email contacts, then it's really hard to just do a blind email. What usually ends up happening is somebody tries to get a hold of HR. HR has no idea where to send it, so your stuff sometimes gets lost. They do their best to get it to us, but making sure that you get it to the right person is hard via email if you don't have a direct contacts email. As far as addressing it, I know there's different programs of thought, but for the most part, you can address it to the head athletic trainer, and he's going to get it to the right person, because every program's a little bit different as far as if it's the first assistant or somebody down below that who manages the internship program. Sometimes it's a group effort. So I'd worry less about who you're addressing it to and just making sure you get it addressed, and apply to all 32 teams. You don't know who wants what, you don't know who's looking for who, and you don't know where your references might lead you. That network becomes super important in making sure that that is handled. Best time frame is a little bit different for everybody, but what I usually recommend is if you get your application in between September and December, to each of your 32 teams, and the earlier the better, then you have a better shot of making your resume available to those who are hiring. Some people hire before December, some people hire after December, some people do a rolling hire, which is kind of what we do. We kind of hire people as we see them, and do interviews as we see them. I think those are the biggest points. Sometimes people ask, what is an application? This is very generic. This is usually a cover letter, your resume, and your references. Please include your references for us. I know sometimes people still like to list the references upon request. When you have hundreds of applications, I normally don't have time to request your references. Unfortunately, it's in the middle of season for us and trying to make a Super Bowl run for every 32 team. All of us are trying to do that. It's time consuming, as you can only imagine. So
Sure.
Save us a step and go ahead and include those initially. And that's pretty much the application process. And again, start with pfats.com. There's so much information right there.
Thank you, Tiffany. And I love that you mentioned the PFATS website, and then as well, the female and the minority scholarships involved or offered there by each of the teams. We do have a follow-up question to build on that from Lindsay. She would like to know specifically, as a female, getting an internship position with an NFL team. Is there any specific advice for females that you would have?
Be a good athletic trainer.
I love that. I love it. Thank you. Perfect. We've got one more question that came in here from the audience. So with these 2020 COVID students becoming certified and they come to you for their first job interview, how will that interview be different because of their gaps in clinical education? I mean, and how are you going to do the interviews with this current setting? Who wants to take that one? I'll let you guys.
I'll take a first stab at it, and then everybody can correct me from here. Like with your clinical education in the spring, everything was interrupted, and it just didn't go as anybody saw planned. And I think hiring processes are going to be dynamic. They're going to be changing, but I think the expectation is you may or may not get an in-person interview. And that's going to be dictated by the virus, not by, well, I guess finances could come into play on that. But I would say if you have not practiced interviewing via one of a Zoom or a Skype or any number of the other platforms, you might want to consider reaching out to a preceptor, reaching out to one of your clinical or one of your athletic training educators and see how you might be able to practice that, because it very well may be after the application process, you may end up in a queue with, a interview that looks something like this without hundreds of people. But, and again, to be able to convey your best self in this type of platform, I think is going to be sort of important as we kind of move forward.
Preparing for the unusual, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dale, I don't know, are you doing much hiring too?
Actually, I'm fortunate that I do have a staff, so we do some hiring. It's actually one of the things Fred nailed was awesome. It's like one of my employees that we actually just hired was actually the first interview was we sent them questions and they had to reply on the computer. So it was a video that they sent to us with the questions. So the Zoom look is here, and I think it may stay. The nice thing about that is if you were applying to my job here and you're living in California, you didn't have to fly all the way out to do it. So there are advantages to that. So we're able to save the applicant money from having to come in. The other thing is you're going to have to demonstrate, going back to not having those clinical experiences, you may have to demonstrate that you still have that skill set. You've got to be a good athletic trainer. You've got to be able to still do your evaluations, tape the ankles. You have to be able to do all those important things that are what athletic trainers do. But at the same point, you may also say, you know what, because of not having so much hands-on experience, I'm going to be relying also on my mentors to be helping me. And that could be something to be talking with as well. You know, admit that, you know what, you don't have all the answers, but it's okay. And no one, as we said, no one does, but I'm going to reach out and find other resources to help me be successful and help my patients be successful.
I love that. Thank you. Tiffany, do you have anything to add to that one?
You know, I'm actually really glad, Dale, that you mentioned the gap that clinical experience might have for graduates. We're lucky enough, obviously, that we're hiring interns, so we don't expect them to have the answers. And we do our best to create a learning or an educational opportunity for them in a give and take sort of way. But what I will put back on the new grad or intern in this case is that, again, mistakes are perfectly fine. Not knowing is perfectly fine. Asking for multiple demos is even perfectly fine. But take it upon yourself to learn. Take it upon yourself to go practice, and take it upon yourself to get better. Again, this is an amazing opportunity to showcase how you stand out if you're looking for an NFL internship, or if you're looking for a job and that's how you're doing your interview. That might be a great question. How did you compensate for your lack of clinical education? What did you do to set yourself up for success? Notice that you were able to take a situation that was difficult and manage it in such a way that you are now set up for an opportunity in a career. That I could only imagine that being an amazing question for an interview that I'd love to continue on.
Yeah, that's great, Tiffany. You hit on some good points here. That we have another question that came in, and just wondering that it's challenging enough to try to get or land a job right after school, but even now with the COVID and so many teams, schools, and so forth making cuts and either cutting staff or just resources in general, and potentially not doing the hiring that they normally would do. So how you touched on it a little bit, Tiffany, but if you could all expand a little bit on what would be your recommendations for those individuals that are unable to get a job this time around to keep themselves competitive and be good candidates for the job market next year. Dale?
Okay. So it's actually pretty interesting. I always wanted to work in the secondary school setting. Okay, so as soon as I graduated, I wanted the secondary school. It was my destination. It's the area I wanted to be. And when I first came out of college, I could not find a job in that setting full time. There's also at the time, there was some clinical outreaches. I didn't want to work that route. I wanted to be a full-time school. So I actually ended up working in another job. I worked in a warehouse for a year. Now, at the same time, I did provide myself opportunities to work with schools, other clinics, to help keep my skill set going, as well as keep myself informed and to keep those opportunities available. So you don't always have to be, again, like I said, in that traditional setting, but you still got to get a job. Being a father of 2 daughters, the boyfriend's got to have a job. So you want that work. See, everyone's smiling. That's good. But always make yourself available. Again, there's going to be, at least in my Chicago area, I believe there's going to be a lot of competition. I think there's going to be a lot of athletic trainers who may not be working this fall. And so there's going to be a lot of competition I fear out there. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really hope I'm wrong. But you've got to keep on doing things that you can, as Tiffany's saying, building on those skill sets, building on different certifications to make yourself as marketable as possible. And remember, athletic training, we don't always like to think of it. It is a business. Whether you work in a school, whether you work for a clinic, for the NFL, we are a business, and we have to make sure we act like we are in a business. And remember, comes down to dollars and cents.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And Fred, I don't know if I've missed you on this one. Did I give you an opportunity on this question?
Yeah, so I think, you know, this is look at the opportunity that might be in front of you. And yes, the job market may be tight, but what can I do to differentiate myself, and where are the gaps in my, you know, either my education or my knowledge base, and kind of look for opportunities to plug those things in. I know at the college level prior to COVID, we were on, there's a lot of talk about improving mental health competencies and trying to have, you know, better conversations with kids and being able to support them better. And now with the social justice really rising to the forefront, if you're struggling to find a job, you know, to be able to kind of explore those areas to improve your IQ around social justice, to improve your IQ around mental health, because I'm not sure in our curriculums today we're getting a ton of that. So I would say use this time, yes, continue to develop your network, develop those relationships, continue to apply. If you have to work in a warehouse or, you know, whatever to make ends meet, do that. But also look at things to, as Tiffany has said, continue to develop yourself and continue to make yourself more marketable, so that when that job does come open, you've got some of those really nice things that you can put yourself forward with.
That's great. I remember, and I think Tiffany, you might have touched on this, is that you guys are looking at potentially hundreds of resumes, right? To fill very few positions. So even just the quality of your resume or the extra work that you're going to require that potential employer to do on your behalf to get you a job or find out more about you. So every detail counts. And Fred, to build on what you mentioned there is keep yourself or make yourself marketable, get yourself more experience. Noah wants to know, what are some of the things that you look for in a resume that helps someone stand out from the field of others?
So for me, to be able to have someone represented in a concise fashion, because if you're looking at hundreds of resumes, it's really easy for one to look like the next one. And want to be able to look at a resume and say, okay, here's the education, here were the clinical experiences, here are the other experiences, and you know, other certifications. I'll tell you, if young professionals are coming out and they've got additional credentials, that's always favorable to me, because you know, A, you want those skills, but also B, you're also getting someone that is committed to the profession and committed to ongoing development. So when you see those things in a young professional, that really grabs your attention. At least it does mine.
That's great. I think Brittany read your mind of what your answer is going to be, because she wants to know what additional certifications have you found to be more useful in your career. So are there specific credentialings that you all would recommend that you either look for or that you found to be useful for yourself in your career?
I'll just speak for myself. And this probably is things you may not go into right off the bat, but active release is something that I've always, if I see someone that's done that, because that's an expensive class, it's very intensive, it requires a lot of effort. The PES and the CES are also credentials that catch my eye. FMS, those are all things that I know when I see those on a resume, again, it shows me someone that's committed, that has really gone the extra mile to show that they really want to do this job at a high level.
That's true. You hit on some key points there of doing beyond what's just required and what's necessary, but how to make yourself better. I don't know, Tiffany, do you have any others that you would add?
None specifically. I think the general consensus, though, is that a manual therapy is going to be super helpful, and that's from top down, whether you're high school, college, or NFL. And that's because if you don't have modalities, you always have your hand. So that's one that I recommend to people. I did want to kind of, I guess, lead a caveat to that. Sometimes new grads ask me, well, how am I supposed to pay for that? Because some of these are expensive. Absolutely. Some of these are expensive. And there's a two-part question to that. Sometimes you just have to invest in yourself. That's part of it. That's part of gaining the education, is taking an opportunity to invest in yourself and knowing that that's going to pay out somewhere else. And the other part is there are other ways to show passion for athletic training as a new grad. A lot of universities offer certain courses or certifications within your curriculum, and so that's a great opportunity. But I sometimes recognize that that means they were handed to you, that was part of the curriculum, which is great for your program. But how else can you show me that you're passionate about what it is you do? And that's when I think, as a student, giving your free time away for free is huge. What did you do in addition to your clinicals? Because again, that was handed to you. Some of them you might have to compete for, but overall, those are handed. Everybody has to have a clinical education opportunity. How many times did you go above and beyond in your education of yourself for free? And what were those opportunities? Was there a free football clinic that you decided to join and be a first responder at? I mean, underneath the guidance of a preceptor, but that wasn't something you were assigned. They asked for volunteers. Was there a Pee Wee football league that needed a little bit extra hands, and your preceptor said, you know what, I'm going to do this as part of my extra work. Do you want to come join me? Those are opportunities for you to learn. And usually those, again, create that network that is so invaluable, that allow you to gain more access to other avenues. So anytime anybody says that they don't have the funding, there's always a two-part answer to that. It's invest in yourself and find a great one, or, okay, well, there's free options out there for you. Are you going to invest your time instead?
Love it. Going back to being responsible and giving out what you're expecting back as well. Yeah. Dale, what makes a candidate stand out for you as you're looking through resumes?
Those two honestly nailed it. I mean, it is those opportunities that you have taken beyond what was handed to you, and what you've invested in yourself. And sometimes, as you're a new grad, it's really, really hard to have some of those extra credentials. But if you can do it, take those opportunities to do it.
And setting a goal, right? I think if you don't have to do it all at once, give yourself a goal. You know, Fred has a goal of reaching out to somebody from that was influenced in his past every so often, and you can set a goal of how much education you're going to get every year or every 2 years, that maybe you're saving some of that money up to make that happen. So I love that. Mitchell would like to know, what advice do you have for newly certified athletic trainers in having critical confrontational conversations with staff, guardians or parents, and coaching staff? Dale, since you're chuckling, I have a feeling you've got plenty of experience with this. So
remember, a lot of times that the parent, we're going to answer that a couple different ways. The parent / guardian, a lot of times, is very passionate, and you've got to remain calm. You know, in my system, we have a rule. 5 people have all got to agree that an athlete can play. 1 is the athlete, 2 is the parent / guardian, 3 the coach, 4 the physician, and 5 the athletic trainer. Any one of those 5 say no, that kid does not play. And it's a great way of saving yourself. And it's a policy that we've had for a very long time. Our coaches know it, our athletes know it, our parents know it. It's in our student handbook. And it's really important, again, to have these policies and procedures available for everyone to see and know, because especially on the high school level, secondary school level, you know, I'm also thinking about these young men and women 20, 30 years down the road, what they're going to be looking like. You know, I'm fortunate that, you know, my kids right now, they're not relying on playing football this year for their living. You know, it's a big difference. This is supposed to be for the fun of the game. And we've got to do that. Do confrontations happen? Yes, but you've got to do 2 things. Remain calm and stick to the facts. Coaches, when they're in the middle of a football game, they yell, they scream. They're passionate. They're in the middle of battle. Okay, that's what they're doing. They are fighting for whatever. They get passionate. Realize that. I mean, we all get passionate about something, but you've got to step outside of yourself, kind of absorb it, and then figure out what the process is, de-escalate everything by staying calm and talking slowly, and that will help. But because if you start getting really angry, guess what? That just escalates everything, and it's going to be very difficult. But with dealing with those parents, it's going to happen. They want their child to play, and sometimes it's not right for them to be playing. And it bites, but you got to be the adult. You got to be the one advocating for the athlete, even if the parent/athlete are not advocating for themselves.
I love that. Athletic trainers are often put in very difficult positions of making those decisions that aren't going to necessarily be the popular ones, right? And so having that written policy is sound advice. Fred, you're dealing with a little bit of a different demographic. It's just a little bit older than the high school athlete. You're dealing with a collegiate athlete in your setting now. Is that what advice would you have?
So I think there's a premium on listening skills, and to be able to, when the other person, the parent or guardian, the student athlete or the coach is escalating things of, I hear the emotion, and being able to kind of reflect back and say, well, I know this game's important to you, but, tell me more, or, really try and listen to what they're saying, kind of try and name the emotion and pull the emotion out of it. And let's have the conversation about, as Dale says, the facts. And the facts are more often than not, the same for everyone, although that gets sideways sometimes as well. But again, really trying to listen and what's going on, and being able to say, is there something else in play here? We want your child to be safe, healthy. Is it worth the risk? And then I think that in and of itself is calming, de-escalating. And again, you can kind of navigate your way back to the facts, and then a really good informed decision can be made.
Remain calm, right? Yeah,
yep.
I love that. Yeah. So Tiffany, although you work with professional athletes, they sometimes they're described as just bigger children, right? But I'm sure they've got influencers that are, talking to them as well. What's your advice?
Absolutely. And you know what, I think it all still comes down to the same thing. And Fred, I'm still learning on my listening skills. You sometimes just have to pause and take in the extra tidbits that aren't being said immediately. And then following it up with education. I think that's the biggest factor for us. Guys want to know the who, what, when, where, and why. So if you don't have that information, humble yourself, find it, give it to them, or lead with that. That's a lot of our problem solving here is start with the education. Hopefully they won't have the follow-up question because you gave them all the information up front, but invite the questioning as well. Ask for more information from them so that you can give them more information, and really give them all the tools that they need to make the decision you want them to make. And if we can't come to the same conclusion, then again, it's providing what they need, because they need something else in order to get to the same point. Because if you're backing your information with science and reasoning and facts, like Dale pointed out, then hopefully you can get your athlete, or for us agent, we don't usually deal with parents too often, but get those guys on the same page as you, so that we can all come to the understanding that we just want your safety, your health first. What am I missing that you want that there too? Like, how do I get you to that point? So education is a huge one, and listening. Thanks.
Listening is probably the hardest thing we all can learn from, right? And also understanding that injuries, for some, some athletes just don't handle injuries well emotionally, right? And so understanding that they just want to get out there, they want to do it, and for them to understand that you have their well-being at heart, that's important. So I love that advice. Going to take a little bit of a turn here. We've got a question from Yuki and Justin on the topic of salaries. So as a young professional, how can we negotiate a fair salary in a time where employers are trying to reduce pay? Fred, we'll let you start this one.
Yeah, hell of a question.
It is.
And so there's a negotiation's sort of a nothing we're taught in athletic training school, you know, in terms of how to kind of manage the business side of our careers. So, I mean, to me, there's one, you'll have an idea of what the job is going to pay. Usually that's in a posting. But, you know, you have to realize most schools, and Tiffany could speak to the professional level a little bit more than I could at this point, but there are bands. And so maybe an entry-level athletic training job will pay within this band. And there's probably some wiggle room, but I think it's incumbent upon the applicant to say, I deserve this much money and here's why, and be able to make a case for yourself in the affirmative, saying I have this experiences and this is why I deserve X dollars more than what you're offering me. With the idea that there's an inherent risk in that, in terms of, you know, the employer may say, gee, you can't do that. We're going to go on to our next person. But also, you know, it could ultimately be very successful for you. But again, you're buying into a little bit of risk, but that is a negotiation. And again, as much as you can make the case in the affirmative for yourself, you know, to me, I would love to see that, because that shows me that candidate or that applicant really has confidence, really has the ability to be able to, you know, advocate for themselves.
Great. Dale and Tiffany, do either of you have anything to add to that?
You know, like Fred was saying, sometimes there are lanes or alleys, whatever you want to call it, that you can only hire someone at. That's what my school is at. You know, so many years of experience, you get X amount of whatever lane. But you know what? Like Fred said, there's nothing ever wrong with asking for more. You know, does it have a slight risk? Yes. But the employer may come back and saying, sorry, this is what it is. It doesn't hurt. Some employers are looking for sometimes people, yes, to get the cheapest that they can, but in their budget, they have a little bit more to actually provide that person. So again, nothing wrong with asking. The worst thing, well, like Fred said, the worst thing is they get say, no, we're going to the next candidate. But I'm guessing if they want you, they're going to say, sorry, but this is what our pay is.
I think this is so important. This is so important for young grads, because like Fred said, this is not something that we get taught off the bat. It's very few programs that kind of address this. I was lucky enough that we had conversations like this in our clinical education, but I think people have to be willing, again, to go back to invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. And if you did the investing, then you know what you're worth. You're able to show them what you've done. You're able to show them that you put out the sacrifices, and you're able to tell them that, no, this is not what I'm worth. And you have to be able to leave it. That's huge. Because if they come back with a counteroffer and they say, this is all we got, you have to say, cool, that's not what I'm worth. And you have to be able to leave. And that's hard for young grads. That was hard for me when I had my first job. It's hard to say, I have bills to pay, but this is only offering $27,000. Real offer. That was a real offer I got. $27,000. Are you ready to walk? Are you ready to work somewhere else? Which unfortunately it stinks, but are you ready to work somewhere else? Maybe not in athletic training, while you hone your athletic training skills, so that nobody's taking that job, because they know that they can afford more. We know that we're worth more. Make people understand that you are worth more than $27,000, than $30,000, $35,000, whatever that is that you think you're worth. Make sure you put the homework in, do the self-advocacy, and walk away. It's hard. I say that knowing that I haven't been able to do that. I was lucky enough after that $27,000 offer to get another offer somewhere else. But I had to really think about that. Like, I have bills. Am I ready to go work at Panera Bread? Because that's where I was working before. Am I ready to go back to Panera Bread? Man, I love Panera Bread, but that isn't what I went to school for. So, you know, and that's tough. That's something every single athletic trainer is going to have to do when they come out of school, if they're not given that perfect job. Because I don't know too many that got the dream job out the gate. I really don't. And I know even less who got the dream job with the dream salary out the gate. So do your homework, know what you're worth, put that passion in, what we talked about before with those certifications, the volunteering your time. That's investment in yourself. Make sure that investment turns over.
Love
And
the advice.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
and
Fred.
I would just add, sometimes that position can feel pretty lonely, where
Yeah.
you feel like you're the only one in it trying to make this, tough decision. That's where your educators, your preceptors, your mentors, to be able to, hit that pause button and say, I'm going to have to give you an answer tomorrow, and then reach out to your network and find out, how this, what advice would you give me? Because again, I can imagine that probably feels pretty lonely.
Yeah, definitely difficult decisions to make. But again, I commend you all for the advice that you have and the paths that you've set for others coming behind you. Because again, we're our own worst enemies, right? If we keep taking those low-paying jobs, then they're going to keep offering them. But do your homework and be prepared. I love that. So we're running close on time here. I've got one final question from the audience that if we could just do a quick round here on how do you find work-life balance in each of your settings? So Dale, how do you find work-life balance?
So one of the things I do is I make the school my entertainment. So a lot of people going into my position at a secondary school setting, they love the idea of being an athletic trainer. They love the sideline. They love the excitement. Then all of a sudden they realize, wait, I'm working on a Friday night and all my friends are off in the bar having fun, or I got to work and then turn around and work all day Saturday. Guess what? It happens. That's reality. But you know what? If you make your job your entertainment, it's phenomenal. Now, I have two daughters, 23 and 21. They were water girls on the sideline for football and basketball games. My wife came to the games. They loved being around. They didn't care about the sport, but they were having fun doing different things. You can make your job your entertainment, and that's when it gets really fun. I live in Chicago. We have lots of things to do in this city. But you know what? I have more fun watching my kids, the athletes, playing sports than I do for watching a professional baseball or football game. It's more exciting because I know those kids. I see their blood, sweat, and tears as they play compared to someone in the NFL, which I love watching. But I have more passion for that than the other sports.
Excellent. Tiffany?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, honestly, I don't know what else to say because that just translates to everywhere. When work-life balance is hard, and absolutely it's tough when it's long days and whatnot, but gosh, when you get to plan your away game and go, oh, well, how are we going to explore this little area? But with your coworkers or your interns, getting to know them, or the other departments, how do they do what they do, learning the ins and outs of your business, and being able to be there Sunday. I mean, that's a privilege for us, right? We're part of these athletes' lives where for that moment in time, that's their superhero moment, right? And we got to be a part of that and building them up to that. So God, that was it. That's it. I ain't got nothing else.
I'm excited just talking about it.
Right. I'm like, ooh.
Fred, what do you say? Work-life balance.
Yeah, well, I've been good and bad at this throughout my career. And I think where I've landed, and seems to be a fairly healthy place, is my identity isn't my job. And my identity is a father, an athletic trainer. I play golf. I try and be, good in the community. So again, if you are all in on your life as an athletic trainer, there is no work-life balance. But if you have other interests and you give yourself permission to kind of pursue those interests, parallel to, your professional life, then I think work-life balance is within reach. I worry about people that are just so passionate and, their whole identity is tied up into their job. We all have one thing in common. We're all going to leave a job here eventually. And does that mean your identity goes with it? No, I don't want that to happen to anybody. So that's kind of how I've sort of managed it of late.
That works. And I'm starting to get the signal here that we're running short on time. So sorry to hear, but unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today. And so it's time flies when you're having fun, huh? And all these great questions that everybody came up with. And so on behalf of Gatorade and the NATA, thank you, Dale. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Tiffany, for joining us today and for sharing your insights and your recommendations and experiences. This discussion was fantastic, and we hope that you're all feeling more prepared and confident as you continue in your careers. Remember that Gatorade is committed to supporting you throughout your education and career as an athletic trainer. So I want to encourage all of you to join Gatorade Performance Partner, the first multidisciplinary community of sports performance professionals. Within this program, you'll get access to exclusive benefits like complimentary CEUs, science-backed resources, and opportunities to discover the latest that Gatorade has to offer. And be sure to follow Gatorade Performance Partner on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn so you don't miss out on any exciting new updates. Again, from Gatorade and myself, thank you, panelists, for being here, and thank you all for joining in. Take care.